a superhero movie. Shot and produced in Yugoslavia by a couple of Israelis and only released theatrically in England for its main character's 50th anniversary. On this episode of Moving Panels, we discuss Captain America 1990. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows inspired by, based on, and adapted from the world of comic books. I'm your host, Laramy Wells, and joining me on today's episode is Kim Cheek.
Hello, I am glad to be here.
I was glad to have you, especially for such a wonderful movie.
It's a gem, isn't it?
It is great. So we are going to talk about Captain America 1990. That is typically the way it is framed, even though it was not released in 1990. The first time Americans got to see it was in actually 92.
And the year that's supposed to be happening in is 1993.
Yeah. So, just all sorts of craziness here. So Captain America, this was back when Marvel licensed out their characters, and two Israelis, in 1984 purchased the rights to make a movie based off of Captain America. And this was for Canon Films. Now, the movie is not released by Canon Films. It's released by 21st Century Films. But it's fun to talk about Canon Films because they also had the rights to Spider-Man at the time. And me, big Superman fan, discovered that they also were the ones who bankrolled the fourth Superman film. Now, this is we're talking 1990-ish, the late 80s. This is when DC actually ruled the cinemas, as hard as that is to believe. We had Superman in 78 and into the 80s, and then we had Batman, who just came out in 89. Now, the Superman movie that these guys bankrolled was, unfortunately, the worst of the bunch.
Not a surprise.
Yeah. So the budget got cut from $40 million to almost $17 million, so more than half, which explains, for those of you who've seen it, that it looks and feels like a TV movie. It's like a Saturday morning live-action show.
Yeah, Incredible Hulk actually looks a little bit better than this, and that was late 70s.
Yeah. So, we had in television, we had the Incredible Hulk, and in the Incredible Hulk, towards the end, they introduced Thor, they introduced Daredevil. We had Dolph Lundgren play the Punisher. I mean, we were getting ready for the... now with Captain America, they could have done the Avengers.
It would have been a very interesting, really heavily cut Avengers.
All right. So, again, this is Captain America. He's kind of the poster boy for Marvel Comics, although he didn't actually start in Marvel Comics. Captain America first appeared in Timely Comics, Captain America #1 back in March of 1941. He was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. Those of you familiar with Marvel should recognize the name Jack Kirby.
Excellent artist.
Yeah, this isn't the first time that Captain America has been live action. In 1944, not too long after the comic was introduced, Dick Purcell played him in some movie serials. A lot of superheroes had the movie serials back then. And then the role was taken over in 1979 in a really loose Captain America movie, TV movie by Reb Brown. Kim, you and I actually...
Best of the B-movies.
Yeah, you and I actually discussed that movie a little earlier.
Yeah, I love the clear shield and his fancy motorcycle from the movie. It's part of my favorite parts.
Plexiglass shield. That's the great part of that one. And he puts it in front of the motorcycle and then the big helmet. Oh, but that's another episode. So the reins got handed off in this movie to Matt Salinger. Not a big actor. He had previously been in like Revenge of the Nerds as one of the frat boys. His really only claim to fame is that he is the son of author J.D. Salinger, who wrote Catcher in the Rye. What'd you think of Matt Salinger?
I mean, it doesn't look like he did a great job, but he didn't have a lot to work with. No. So if you're going for goofy, he did a good job.
I mean, if you look this movie up, the shot of him giving a thumbs up, the
famous
grin,
gif.
Oh, the grin on his face is so goofy.
Now, when the first Avenger came out, the 2011 Captain America movie, he was interviewed by GQ, and he's like, well, this is what we thought the movie was going to look like for us when they went into production.
You had to think that there was a lot of promise. I mean, yes, you've got this relative unknown playing the lead, but the supporting cast was some amazing actors.
The parents from The Christmas Story, excellent.
Yeah, there's your trivia. If you're ever asked what other movie did the parents from A Christmas Story star in, it is Captain America 1990.
And the girl who plays Sharon, I forget her name, she's gone on to do a lot of TV stuff. She's a really good actress, and she did not get enough time in this.
What do you mean didn't get enough time? She played two different characters. She played Bernice and Sharon.
And she pretty much was the badass of the movie, and still, it should have been called Sharon.
We will get into a little bit of that later when we're talking about the movie. But continuing with our characters, you can't have a Captain America movie without Red Skull. Well, you can. They did it in 1979. But this one has Red Skull, and Red Skull, one of the rare villains who appeared in the first issue with the hero and then just stayed together. Joker wasn't in the first Batman. Lex Luthor wasn't in the first Superman, but Red Skull was in the first Captain America. Although he was a little different, he was just a guy in a mask. The one that we are more familiar with has been retconned as the one that appeared in Captain America #7 in October of the same year, 1941. And that's the Nazi. However, in this one, he is not a Nazi. He is not our Johann Schmidt that we're familiar with. His name is, and I am probably going to butcher this, Tadzio De Santis, and he is Italian.
Has a very different backstory. He's a pretty different Red Skull from any Red Skull in the comics.
Oh, no, most definitely. And he's he's some sort of child prodigy. I wasn't quite sure if I was watching The Pianist when the movie started. Because he's playing the piano and then he gets kidnapped, and for some reason they just murder his entire family.
Nazis, that's why.
Yes. No other reason other than they're Nazis. Now, in the comics, the character's face has been hidden most of its run, and I think that should have been the same in this movie.
You didn't enjoy Freddy Krueger face at the beginning?
Look, at the very beginning, he looked like someone had taken an action figure and left it out in the sun too long.
Melted strawberry, it's a look.
There you go. Yeah, it was a horrible look. Scott Pauline, or Pauline, however you pronounce his name, he's the one who played Red Skull, and here was the thing. If you couldn't figure out by the extremely stereotypical accent he was doing, this man is American. He is not Italian. He was from Ohio.
I mean, he wore the suit well. He wore the makeup that was not the Red Skull makeup well enough that it was terrible still, but it didn't look horribly wrong on him.
Well, I mean, and this going into the Captain America costume, they did look like the cartoon or comic book characters brought to life. They look like they were ripped straight off the page. But comic books were a lot brighter. When you put that into a real world, it doesn't quite work. And you reach that bit of campiness, which this movie doesn't really grab onto. The way
I don't know. I think if he'd had that real Red Skull face direct from the comics, it would have been better than the melted strawberry or the latex with foundation over it the whole movie.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. If you haven't seen the movie, he's only Red Skull at the beginning. Once we jump 50 years ahead, which, do they even explain how Red Skull survived that long?
No.
Yeah.
He just did.
Yeah,
and he had a kid.
Yes, and he has a daughter who is evil as well. Although I think that's I'm pretty sure that's in the comics, that Red Skull has a daughter.
In the comics, her name is Sin, and it's Valentina in this, and Sin is a really different character, and he acts very differently toward her because he is awful to his daughter in the comics.
Yeah, and he clearly likes her in this one, although she... I'm pretty sure, I didn't look it up, but whoever the actress was that played her daughter, I'm pretty sure she couldn't speak English. Because it really sounded like all of her lines were dubbed.
I mean, I think they hired a supermodel goon squad and said, okay, you're the daughter. It doesn't matter if you can act or not. You're just, I'll be pretty, I'll shoot guns.
So, going back, Red Skull, again, he only looks that way at the beginning of the movie. For the rest of the movie, it just looks like a guy with a botched plastic surgery going on. It kind of reminded me of a much later movie, which is also not that great, Punisher Warzone, and reminded me of the guy that played Jigsaw and the look they gave him. It was almost identical.
You're not wrong. That's really similar.
Yeah.
And about 10 or 12 years apart.
So this movie really centers around the president being kidnapped, and this is President Gimbal, who happened to be a child when Captain America did his one and only mission of World War II, and somehow
failed mission.
Yeah, failed mission. Somehow saw him, but he grew up. He became the president. And this entire movie centers around him wanting to pass some sort of environmental act, which
as 90s presidents do.
Yeah, definitely a 90s storyline, and they don't want that. And so they kidnap President Gimbal. We also get Ned Beatty is in this. And I just went, come on, Ned Beatty, you were in Superman. Now you're in this crap.
But again, he's in so many, you had a supporting cast in so many good movies, and then they get here and they're trying really hard.
Oh no, Ronnie Cox.
Fair, he is one of the most important characters.
Yeah, Ronnie Cox, who plays the president, Ned Beatty, who plays. I mean, the two guys they were both in Deliverance together, and now they're in this movie. Again, we had amazing actors in these side roles, and they delivered what the script they had. It just, it's what's bad script.
But see, if hear the pitch for his character though. You're an ace reporter. You're really good at your job. You're so good that instead of calling the Secret Service or the military to go find Captain America, who's recently unfrozen, the President of the United States calls you to go take care of it. I mean,
yeah. Can we explain that really quick? Do you realize that some people just stumble upon this red glove sticking out of the snow in Alaska, and almost immediately Red Skull's daughter's henchman and Ned Beatty all end up in Alaska at the same time?
I mean, Captain America also got up out of the ice for 50 years and walked out and seemingly walked to, I don't know, the United States through Canada.
Yeah.
So why not?
Yeah. Oh no. And of course he goes back to see his love from the 40s, Bernice, who is played by the same actress who would also play Bernice's daughter, Sharon. I didn't quite understand. I don't know if it was part of the license or whatnot, but why didn't they just go with Peggy? Like, why is it a completely different name?
So I actually looked this up and tried to figure it out, and I don't know. They had a lot to say about why Red Skull looks the way he looks and why Captain America has the attitude he has, but why they didn't just do Peggy Carter or something, I don't know.
Yeah, because the daughter's name is Sharon, which is Peggy Carter's daughter's name.
Yeah.
Even though it's a completely different character, because Sharon Carter is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all that, but I didn't get it. Now, I did find out that in the comics in the 80s, so that would have been probably when the script was written, apparently Captain America did have a girlfriend named Bernice. So I wasn't familiar with that. I just happened to find that. So I guess maybe that's what they went off of.
And I think the original outline for this script was pitched in the early 80s. So they could have just gone off of that versus what was actually happening in the comics at the time.
So it could have made sense. I found it funny, though. I get that they were using the same actress. You barely see her in 1940, 41, whatever the year was. You barely see her, so the fact that you're supposed to recognize that it's her again, I don't know. And then when he shows up in 50 years later and comes to her house, you look at her and you immediately go, okay, that's a young woman in old makeup.
I mean, it's reflective of the Red Skull's makeup. They had the same makeup artist for everybody.
Yeah, I just didn't get why not just, I don't know if the budget just didn't allow, like, why not just hire an old woman to play old Bernice?
But see, that makes it creepier that they look just alike with different hair. That makes it stranger.
See, you say that. I honestly wouldn't have been able to tell you they were the same actors.
Now, when I saw the VHS years and years ago, I didn't know. But when I watched the Blu-ray, I'm like, wait, that's the same lady. No. When I got the higher quality screen, I could tell.
Yeah.
Hello, movie viewers and fellow movie lovers. My name is Tim Williams, and I'm the creator and host of Movie Views Presents the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. See, I love the 80s, and I have a great appreciation and nostalgic passion for the classic 80s flicks that birthed my love for movies and ultimately helped shape my childhood. On each episode, I'll discuss, with a special guest co-host of course, a different film from the 1980s. We'll share memories, favorite characters, iconic scenes, and even share some behind-the-scenes stories along the way. We'll discuss famous blockbusters like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Coming to America, Ghostbusters, Dirty Dancing, Top Gun, Die Hard, and many, many more. As well as some other cult classics and even lesser-known flicks we discovered on cable TV or the now-defunct video rental stores. Remember those? No matter what 80s flick we choose to talk about, we'll always have a good time, so come and check us out. You can find the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast on major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and more. Be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss a single episode. Once again, I'm Tim Williams, and I hope you'll join me for the next 80s Flick Flashback.
All right, so let's get into kind of the story, and I mean, there's not a lot that really connects with the comics, so we're really just going to kind of pick apart the movie a little bit. I did love that when he is turned into Captain America, the general says he may not be Superman, and I just went, wow. Yeah, no, this movie is not Superman.
No, he's not very heroic in that way that Superman is.
Oh,
he's not a very selfless guy.
Oh, we'll get into that a little bit more. I've got that in my notes, kind of at the end, because I'm going to go off on how horrible he is as Captain America. But also at the beginning, when we meet the kid President Kimball and kid Sam, Ned Beatty as a kid, they're trying to figure out who he was, and the kid mentions Submariner, although I had to rewind it. I swear the kid says Submariner.
See, that's what I thought.
And I don't know.
Go back and watch it with the subs or anything, but I thought he said Submariner too.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, they didn't even know what they were talking about. Someone put it into the script, and when he said it, no one thought, oh, hey, he said that wrong. We need to cut and do another take. But he says Submariner, even though it's Submariner. Namor, and Human Torch, not the Fantastic Four Human Torch. This was an android Human Torch, pretty much the same, but it was a robot. These were actually the first superheroes for Marvel Comics. So when Marvel Comics was officially the thing in the 1940s, these were their first big pinnacle superheroes that would later team up with Captain America.
So they tried to give you an Easter egg.
Yeah.
They tried to learn from Batman.
Yeah, they tried to give you a little bit of a nod for the comic book nerds that would be watching the movie. All right, so let's talk about probably the only part of the movie that felt like it was from the comics, and that was Captain America's origin. He starts off as Steve Rogers. He's not a very skinny Steve Rogers. He doesn't look all that...
very injured or sick.
Yeah, so they mention he has polio. And apparently that just means you have this limp. That's it. You have a limp. He more just looked like he hurt his foot when he would walk, because he almost did like a skip when he was like running into his mom's house. But
yeah, he pretty much jumps up the stairs.
Yeah, he pretty much just hops up at one. He like skips up on 1 foot, like he's hopscotching. But yeah, he definitely doesn't look frail. He doesn't look weak. I mean, he looked perfectly healthy. So we're taken away from that. They changed location. They have him living in California versus the comic book where he lives in New York. That's probably just because, again, the movie was filmed primarily in like Yugoslavia, which looks more closer to California than it would New York, especially Brooklyn, which is where Steve Rogers is from. And he's picked for the experiment, which they explain it was out of, hundreds of applications. He was the one that they chose. Didn't really give a reason why he was the one that chose.
Well, apparently he already knew how to fight and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't need to train him at all.
No. Yeah. So, yeah, we don't know that he had any military experience or whatnot. He gets picked for the experiment. Experiments happen. There's a Nazi that's inside, and he attacks and starts shooting up people and kills the scientist that was involved.
Oh, no. We have to talk about this glorious death, because that doctor, Vasily, I think, really one of the better characters, probably because she gets to die so soon. But she magically escapes a really heavily guarded military facility to come to America, just like in the original Captain America.
Yeah, you think they'd shoot at her or something.
Yeah, and she just jumps out the window into the snow and no one cares anymore. And she makes it to America. She gives Steve this serum, and just like in the comics, she never wrote anything down, just in case. And as soon as the serum happens and Steve stands up, the guy whips out a gun, yells, "Heil Hitler," in the most over-the-top comic book murder. It's hilarious. And it just confuses everybody for a minute in a room full of military personnel.
Yeah. And I love Steve gets shot in it. And I'm just like, okay, so wouldn't this be great? Let's just go ahead and just kill Captain America right off the bat. Because, as we know from the comics, Captain America's biggest weakness is a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
So we now have our Captain America, although the first time we see him as Captain America, he's covered head to toe in military garb, green jacket, green helmet. We just see the little hint of blue over his eyes, and that was as much as I actually did like this costume, and I did. I liked the costume. It looked like the little action figure that I had when I was a kid. I liked the costume. But those eye holes, they did not cut those eye holes in the right location.
I don't know. I mean, I think this is one of those cases where, as much as it looked like the comics, since this wasn't a movie for kids, really, I think that's one of those suits that doesn't translate well to movies.
Yeah, no, it again, and they don't really give a reason for it. He's told by the general that he's wearing this, flame-resistant special suit that the scientists came up with, and they joke about...
didn't know anything about camouflage.
Yeah, and then they joke about, how patriotic she was, and I didn't get it. And, they say his code name, he's no one's to know what his name is. He's to only go by the code name Captain America. Although I then question, why did that have to be said? Because he's never with anyone for the duration of his mission.
Yeah, he never does run into anybody else. He's totally alone out there.
Yeah, so I didn't get why they were trying to keep his identity a secret. But they
secretly knew he was a doofus, and he would just say his real name to Red Skull, and, his family would get murdered, as they do.
So we finally see Captain America in all his glory. Shield, the red, white, and blue, the wings on the helmet, and the plastic rubber ears on the side of his head. Yeah, that's something to go back and look. So apparently Matt Salinger had issues with the original costume, and he didn't like the way it felt with his ears sticking through the holes, and so they just closed it up so his ears are inside, and they just attached rubber ears to the outside of the costume.
I really didn't notice it. I didn't know it until I read it.
Oh, no, yeah. I will say you don't really notice it, but it's one of those things that once you do know it, it can't be unseen.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can almost see like the glue around where it is attached to the helmet or whatever you want to call it, the mask. Yeah, he has absolutely no training, which they pretty much let you know right before he faces off with Red Skull. And so he faces off with Red Skull in one of the most elaborate set pieces that just straight camp, a giant rocket, what you'd expect out of like Flash Gordon.
It felt that very 1940s serial feel that they didn't keep up through the movie, but right then they had it.
And just like those from the 40s, what of course happens is he's no match for Red Skull. I love that. He's supposed to be the big super soldier, American patriot who's going to fight the villain, and he loses. Very, very convincingly loses to Red Skull, who then, again, going back to those 1940s serials, straps him to the rocket and then launches him towards the White House. Now, here's something that you then have to think about. So he's launched from Germany? I'm guessing they were in Germany. He's launched from Germany on the rocket all the way across the Atlantic and doesn't think, hey, maybe I should interfere with the path of this rocket, until he realizes he's about to hit a little boy.
Yeah, he just kind of flies all that distance without trying to take it down over the ocean. He's in the yard of the White House when he's like, I should do something.
Yeah. Which is just to kick the fenders on the rocket, which apparently changes its course and heads towards Alaska. And apparently no one else except for that little kid sees this rocket fly over the remainder of the U.S. and Canada until it lands in Alaska.
And no one at the White House came out to go, I wonder what that was.
So there we have it. There's our origin. That's probably the only thing that's really comic book related, which is why we spent a little time on it. The only big difference is that, of course, this is after an encounter with Red Skull, but in the comics, him being frozen actually happened after an encounter with Baron Zemo, one of the other famous Captain America villains. But that's something I'm willing to give in a movie, is adjusting something like that. But that was pretty much it. From this point on, there is no comic book connection to anything he does. And Captain America from this point on becomes the worst superhero.
I don't know, Thor from Incredible Hulk.
Well, yeah, but but here's my thing. That Thor, and we won't get too much into this because it's not the show or movie that we're talking about. That Thor, at least, he was being played as, I'm an idiot and I'm a moron and I'm condescending because I don't know better.
That's fair.
This Captain America, we are led to believe, even from the very beginning, that he's this, homegrown, mama's boy, and they picked him out of a whole bunch of candidates for this, so he was the right fit. And once he becomes Captain America, not only does he lose, he only goes on one mission in World War II. The whole point of Captain America is that he's supposed to fight the Nazis during World War II. He goes on one mission and he fails in that mission. And then when he wakes up, you had mentioned this earlier, he gets thawed out by these scientists, explorers, whatever they are, in Alaska, and he just straight up leaves. Like, he doesn't question them. He doesn't try to figure out where he is. He just, and by the way, he apparently just needed the ice to just slightly thaw. That was all he needed, and he breaks out, and he just leaves.
I mean, he really is unfazed, and when he realizes it's not the 1940s anymore, he doesn't really go, this doesn't make sense. Whereas in the comics, or even in the other movies, he has Black Widow or anybody from S.H.I.E.L.D. to go, so this is the new world now.
Yeah.
He's really unfazed.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Yeah, it's like the next shot, he's just walking down the road or down a field or whatnot, and then just starts getting shot at. And he is rescued by Ned Beatty, which you're thinking, oh, this is great. This is nice and whatnot. And this is now where Captain America shows us his only superpower ability in the movie, and that is to fake being sick so he can steal your car.
Only of the people that's trying to help him. Only if you're trying to help does he do that.
So he does that twice. He does it to Sam there at the beginning, and then he does it later to Sharon. Apparently your name also has to start with S. And it's horrible because he's so robotic when he's like, could you pull over? I feel like I'm getting sick. He finds Bernice. We get the, moment where he meets them and he's getting to know the daughter. And here's my thing. Captain America is almost like people say Indiana Jones is in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Except the opposite. In a way that if Captain America wasn't there, people would have just moved on with their lives. It is only because of Captain America that Bernice is killed, Sam is killed, Bernice's husband, Sharon's father, is put into the hospital, and none of that would have happened if Captain America hadn't shown up.
Exactly.
In fact, the whole premise is the president has been kidnapped, and he has to rescue the president. But here's the thing. He doesn't. The president rescues himself. The president escapes himself. The president gets a hold of a phone and calls the Marines to come in himself.
Also like a good 90s president.
Yes. Again, going with Harrison Ford there, get off my plane. And anything that Captain America does accomplish in this movie, it's because of Sharon.
Yes, the best hero in the film.
Yes, because they go to Italy, which I want to point out. How did Captain America get to Italy? I know this was before, 9/11, but he still has no ID. He has no passport. Anything he may have happened to have inside of that costume would have said he was, born in like 1920. And I just don't see how he got onto a plane and made it to Italy.
Frozen storage. They put him in cargo.
There you go. And also, why does Sharon just so easily help him? Her mother has just been murdered.
But that's exactly why she helps him. So she goes, okay, well, someone has killed my mother because of this guy, but this guy is also the only reason I might be able to see any justice for her. So she goes with him to make sure this is going to happen. And she kind of gets that.
Yeah, but again, he's such a jerk to her because he does the whole leaving her stranded, which, let me point out, when he leaves Sam stranded at the beginning, you kind of think, okay, well, Sam's going to walk to a gas station and call somebody or whatnot, and that's fine. When he leaves Sharon, they're in Italy. He just stranded this woman in a foreign country.
But he did it to protect her. As he went 2 blocks and she was able to catch up walking immediately to save him from not knowing Italian.
Oh, yeah. So much of this movie, the action either takes place extremely fast. When he later confronts Red Skull, there is a scene where Red Skull is shooting at him and he's getting his shield, and there's like 50 cuts. Like 1 second, you almost feel like you're going to have a stroke with how fast the scene is happening. But then there are other action scenes that are so slow. Like when the 2 kids are playing with the ball in the street. It almost reminded me of the scene from Austin Powers where the little cart is coming towards the guy and he's just screaming and it's taking the cart forever. Those kids had plenty of time to just get up and move, but they just watch. Or look
concerned.
Yeah, but they just watch as 2 people are running towards them and a car is coming right behind it. Yeah, so bad.
Some of the punch noises, too, especially in those slow scenes, it really sounds like a cartoon. It's really dubbed in weird.
But it's not just a bad movie. He's a bad Captain America. And nothing put the cherry on top of that sundae more than the fact that he just straight up murders Red Skull.
Well, he ambiguously knocks him off a cliff that's, very, very high.
Yes, in which Red Skull then proceeds to bounce off of every rock on the way down.
But he beheads the daughter.
That's my other thing, is he straight up decapitates her and wants her to know it, too, because he gets her attention to see the shield coming back. Now, people can argue, because I went back, because I was like, did he just decapitate her? I rewound it. The shot of the shield does, for some random reason, flatten off right before it supposedly hits her. And so you could say that the shield actually just knocked her out. But they don't show it. And so it is entirely up to the audience to determine it. And based off of the fact that we have seen that shield embed itself into concrete, there is no question, no doubt in my mind that he decapitated that woman.
I mean, that saying heads up right before he throws it is just the implication of such horrible violence.
Exactly. He does the, Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, funny line before straight up murdering someone.
But this is a darker Captain America. This is Captain America if you took him in the comics and took all of his more negative qualities and amplified them.
Well, and that's my other thing. And I don't want to get too much into this because this is going to start getting into my decision if people haven't already figured out what our decision is probably going to be about this movie. But who was this movie for? It opens up and we get the big, patriotic Captain America title. And so it looks like, okay, cartoonish. This is going to be a kid's movie. And then it proceeds to open up with Italian subtitles. So you have to read the first few lines of this movie. They kidnap a child. Nazis kidnap a child and then slaughter his entire family.
Complete with screaming and some splat noises.
Yeah. So it's not a kid's movie. And then
but the box for the advertising said for kids of all ages, even though it was rated PG-13.
But it's, again, like we've talked about the campiness and you talked about the sound effects with the punching. It's too cartoonish and too campy to be for adults. So it definitely, I don't know who this movie is for. So I think we've said what we need to say. If you have anything else, you can add it before we make our final decision.
So I only have a partial defense of him as Captain America.
Okay.
So it's like I said, it's a darker Captain America. It's if you took all of his bad qualities from the comics, where he tends to be kind of selfish sometimes, and amplified them. And a lot of people criticize Chris Evans' Captain America throughout all the movies as he's too clean cut, he's too straight-laced, he's too selfless. He is not like the comic book character. And I think if what you were looking for was a more complicated Captain America, you would find it here. It's a terrible movie. But that and Sharon being not a SHIELD agent, definitely not a SHIELD agent, but actually being the only reason he gets as far as he does, as a sassy sidekick and not necessarily a romantic interest. I thought that was nice. That was something different you don't see in superhero movies.
Yeah, it's not really until the end when they strike their little pose and I think he's got his arm around her. Do they ever really imply any type of relationship between the two? But no, I can see what you're saying. Again, this is one of those that you're watching and you're going, there was a good movie in this. There was. But they lost it and lost it bad. And I don't know if it was budget.
Like maybe the original pitch was good.
Yeah. I mean, there had to be something, we may never know. We didn't get another Captain America until Chris Evans. And so I don't know, but I think we're anyone listening's probably already figured out what it's going to be. So let's officially go into our final decisions. So here on Moving Panels, we got 3 options. We bag it, stack it, or trade it, all based off of treating the movie the same way you would treat a comic book. So bag it means that it's a keeper. You're going to seal it up. You're going to add it to your collection. You're going to cherish it. You're going to come back and read it and admire it. Stack it being something that, okay, you read it. It was okay. You just toss it into the pile. You might come back to it from time to time. So in case of a movie, it's something that, if you're flipping through the channels and it's on, you'll stop and watch it. And of course, trade it means that, I'd rather have something else. I'd rather watch another movie. So I'm pretty sure everyone can figure out where we are, but I'll let you go ahead, Kim. Do you bag it, stack it, or trade it?
Oh, trade it. Trade it so hard. And I love a good bad movie. I love a good bad movie, but I wouldn't watch this again. Any redeeming feature is not worth it. The 79 Captain America for all its camp is a lot more fun.
Which was a television
The action's
movie.
better. Exactly.
Yeah.
And if I want a good, very dramatic Captain America, I got 2011, so trade this every time.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. Trade it. Keep this Captain America on ice. No, you do not care about this Captain America. They did, I think, play a little too close to the way the Bill Bixby Incredible Hulk did, where he's not even Captain America except for like twice in the entire movie. He does most of it as Steve Rogers. And again, I mentioned it earlier, the only thing I like about this is that he looked good in the costume. He looked like Captain America straight off of the comic. He looked good in the costume. So I'll give him that. I'll give him that one positive. But other than that, yeah, trade this movie. Watch something else. It is not good. All right. Any last words you want to give us, Kim?
Support good movies. And if you're going to support a bad movie, make it better than this one.
All right. Well, thank you, Kim. Appreciate it. And as we look through the 1990 Captain America, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
For Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.